Greetings gastronauts, this is KeefCooks, I'm Keef, and today we're going to do something that involves apples again because we have got a garden full of apples. But it'll be wonderful. I'm going to make apfel strudel. Before we start, a couple of shout outs. One to William Doherty, who made a magnificent donation recently. Thank you very much, much appreciated. And also to my new Patreon patron, Cheryl Adkins. Thank you. This was requested by Mrs. KeefCooks. Yes! Who remembered that we've got a garden full of apples that really need to be used before they go rotten. So I made apple pie the other day, but I've never made apple strudel, so that'll be fun. Bit of an adventure. It looks very interesting, and apparently it's not German, it's Austrian. But all those countries around there that used to be part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, they all claim it as their own. So I'm not getting into that particular argument. I do know there's an awful lot of variation on the recipe, but I'm going to try, as always, to make it as realistic as I can. Anyway, if you enjoy this video, give it a like, share, subscribe, etc. Very important, share. Need to get the numbers up. And let's get on with it. Apfel strudel. So the first job is to make the filling, because we won't have time to do that once we've got the very thin pastry made, which is going to be like phyllo pastry. You can buy that, but I'm going to be a little bit crazy and make it myself again. So I've got some apfels from garden, probably about 1.5 kilos is what you need, and you want tart apples, sour tasting apples, not sweet ones, and not ones that will go mushy when you cook them. And just come out of the garden. Some of them have been pre-masticated, so they need a good rinse in water. And then they need peeling. Actually, just cut the top and tails off because it make the peeling a bit easier. And then slice them into little mini batons, which might be called batonettes, but don't quote me on that. I might have just made that up. We need the zest of 1 lemon, unwaxed. Then we want the juice of that lemon as well. Very pippy, these lemons. Normally, well, you might get 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, but there's about 20 there. So when you've got some chopped up apple, pop it in a bowl, and we'll just pour the lemon juice over it, and that'll stop it going brown. Not much juice in that lemon either. All pips, no juice. Huh. Now, an optional thing in the filling is some kind of dried fruit like raisins. If you don't like them, leave them out, or use sultanas or currants or whatever. But if you do use them, they need to be hydrated. And one of your options for that is rum. Also, brandy works very well. If you don't want to use booze, then you can use orange juice. The choice is yours. So I've got 50 grams of raisins and just enough of this to cover them. And leave that for half an hour or more until the raisins are nice and plump. Okay, I'm going to make the pastry or the dough. So I've got 285 grams of plain flour. £150ml of lukewarm water, 60ml of cooking oil, a neutral oil, that's sunflower, half a teaspoon of salt, and a small egg. Well, we don't get small eggs anymore, it's a medium egg. Okay, mixy. Mix in the salt. Then whack it on your stand mixer with the dough hook. Or do it by hand if you don't have this kind of equipment. Good luck. add the egg and the oil. And the water. And then get that mixing for about 10 minutes. You want it to be nice and smooth and elastic. I'm exhausted after that. There we go. Now I'm going to knead it a bit more by hand. So I want some flour on the top. I've seen plenty of recipes where they say you can use ready-made phyllo dough or even puff pastry, and I've also seen plenty of other ones that say no, you can't, you've got to make it like this because it is so much better. Okay, a little flour on your hands as well. Well, it's sticky but it's smooth. Some recipes say you throw it from shoulder height onto your worktop for 15 minutes. Come back later. Basically, this is all about building up gluten so it's nice and strong and won't disintegrate when we're making it and baking it. Okay, that's me dough. I'm going to wrap that in plastic film and set it aside to rest for 30 minutes, possibly more. While the dough is resting, I'm going to make some buttery breadcrumbs. Now, this is possibly optional, but basically the idea of it is it goes underneath the apple filling and it absorbs juices from the apple and stops you getting a soggy bottom, I think. So I've got 100 grams of breadcrumbs, 50 grams each of unsalted butter and demerara sugar. You can use ordinary white granulated if you like, and a splish or a splash of vanilla extract. Let's go over to that pan. We need to melt the butter first of all, then stir in the sugar, get that dissolved, and then stir in the breadcrumbs and vanilla. Then remove from the heat and set aside until we need it. Now we come to the possibly challenging bit, which is rolling out the pastry really, really thin. So thin, in fact, that you can read the writing of the cloth through the pastry. And if that happens, well, that's when you've done it right, apparently. So clean tea towel and flour on it. Get your dough. There's quite a lot. I think there might be enough for 2 sheets there. So I'm going to see what we can do with this half of it. Wrap the other bit up again so it doesn't dry out. Okay, here we go. Okay, we're making some progress. I think I've done about as much as I can with the rolling pin. So now what you need to do is get the backs of your hands under it. Try not to use your fingers because you'll probably break the pastry. And you see people twizzling it round like it's pizza dough. I'm not sure I can do that. No, I put my thumb through it. No, oh no, 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 no. No. Well, they've certainly made it bigger. I can certainly see through it. Now, before I attempt to assemble a strudel, I've got to finish off the filling. So I've got 100 grams of demerara sugar. Mixy. And a sploosh of vanilla. And you also want to mix in a teaspoon of ground cinnamon. Now, after all that effort of getting the sheet of dough as big as you can, we come down to the limitation of what's the biggest baking tray you can get in your oven, and this is it. I'm going to trim the pastry so it's straight edges. Okay, I've got some melted butter, which I just want to kind of splatter on the pastry. Okay, breadcrumbs. So I'm making 2, so I just want to use half of this. And we just sprinkle it evenly all over, except for a margin around the edges. And then apple. Some people just do the apple in a big heap or a big line and just roll it. But I'm going to spread it out and then roll it so that we get the pastry in between. You know, we get a layer of pastry and breadcrumbs and then a layer of apple, like a Swiss roll. Right, let's see if we can roll it up. You want to start with the edges, just to close them, stop the filling all spilling out. Roll it all up, try and use the cloth if you can. Oh, this is so fragile. Forgot the raisins, didn't I? So there'll be twice as many in the next one. All right, I pretend that was deliberate. I made one with and one without, so we could compare them. Now we need to get it onto the paper and get it onto the tin. Bit of flour on the paper. Okay, how are we going to do this? I don't know. Okay, sort of like that. We need the seam at the bottom. More butter all over. Right, here's the second one. I haven't got so much apple, but I've got raisins. So squeeze them out and sprinkle them all over. And then do the rolly up thing like we did before. And I'll let you drink that rum if you want. The raisiny one, and I want to get the raisiny one on there. I've folded this so it's a bit like a couche cloth you would use if you were doing a baguette, and basically, it's to stop it spreading out flat. I don't know if that will work, but we'll try it. Paint with butter all over. Okay, and I'm just going to put these raisins on this one, so that we know it's the one that's got the raisins in. Okay, it'll fold there. I'll put that in the oven for 30 minutes altogether, but every 10 minutes I'm going to take it out and baste it with more butter. Alright, that actually took 40 minutes, but it's looking good. Oh yeah. Oh wow. That's the current indicator. So that needs to cool down about 10 minutes, then I can slice it and we'll have a taste test. Right, let's see if we can get this off there onto cooling rack. Oh, it's broken. No. Okay. All right. Yeah, and the next one looks like more challenging, and it has spread out flat. There you go. Apple strudel. Not as crisp as I wanted, but there you go. And now it's Taste Test Time with Mr. KeefCooks.
Hello.
Your wish is my command.
Fab. Wasn't sure what to cook today. So, how come we were talking about apple strudel the other day?
It's got apples.
Oh, okay. Because it just came up, and it's one of those things. This used to be my absolute favourite thing years and years ago. I couldn't remember anything about it, just that I loved it. Well, that worked. I mean, Keith makes an excellent apple pie anyway, but this is... It's not as crisp, I think, as I remember.
Yeah.
It's flaky.
Yeah. It should be crisp. Oh, it should have icing sugar on the top. But I couldn't be bothered. Sorry. It's been a long 2 days. Okay. It's all right.
It is!
What a salesman. It's brilliant. Make it. Okay. Thanks for watching and see you next time.